What's up, everybody? Here for another heavy metal album review. And the band I'm going to be reviewing today is one that needs no introduction. One of the legendary death metal bands from the Florida death metal scene, and that is Obituary. They've pioneered or at least helped pioneer the death metal sound of that region and in the United States in the late 80s. First official release was Slowly We Rot in 1989, followed up by Cause of Death, both classics in the field of death metal. And they are back with a self-titled album that is harkening back to the old school. Definitely got the late 80s, early 90s style going on this album. And yeah, it's a great album. Absolutely solid. And give my initial impressions on it. It's got a variety of different flavors to it. It kind of starts off with the first two tracks that are Brave and Sentence Day. It's got a very mid-late 80s thrash feel to it. I mean, it's got the heaviness of the late 80s death metal, but the pace, the cadence, the rhythm, the intensity of it just gives you a real good representation of kind of, maybe even if you wanted to say like thrash evolving into what would become the death metal, the first wave death metal or type of style. Both great tracks. Third track, A Lesson in Vengeance, it's got a real rock and roll backbone to it. The rhythm to it. It's very rock and roll, and I mean like hard rock type stuff. Not Johnny B. Good or anything, but you'll know what I mean. It's the pulse, the rhythm, and the kind of the groove and the swing of the song is definitely more of a rock feel to it. It's a great song, very catchy. End It Now, which is probably got to be one of the top tracks as far as my own preference goes on the album. Gets right back into the the early 90s, late 80s, kind of transition around 1990 type of mid-paced, American death metal, Floridian death metal. Though the Florida bands did have enough to distinguish them as far as their styles go, especially Morbid Angel. Morbid Angel was had with Altars of Madness had something that was going on much different than that's something like Death with Scream Bloody Gore and Leprosy or Obituary with his stuff. But tracks 4 and 5, End It Now and Kneel Before Me, definitely have that mid-paced classic death metal feel to it. I mean, nothing new in that sense, but written well enough that it can stand on its own. Even if you're revisiting a style that's been done a lot, as long as there's the hooks there, the catchiness, the infectiousness of the riffs, and everything else fits in well, and and it's written well enough. It doesn't really matter if you're revisiting that style. If the songs stand out, they stand out, and these definitely do. You start with track 6, entitled "It Lives," and I don't know. I might just be hearing it, and it may be me and nobody else. But I get this very subtle, almost kind of I don't know if it's inspired by, or if it's trying to invoke a little bit of the older Celtic frost. Actually, I may just be hearing it, like I said, but from tracks, especially almost through the remainder of the album. It's 11 tracks total, 36 and a half minutes roughly. 10 tracks with a bonus track. So yeah, at least the 6, it's track 6 on to 10. And into 11, there's something about it that just gives. I mean, maybe it's some of the riffs, maybe it's just certain parts. It gives me that like old, Celtic frost vibe from the early days. And maybe that's intentional, and maybe it's just happens to be there. But yeah, the album, like I said, if you want to compare it to like the Lockup album that I just reviewed, it's definitely a completely different representation of death metal. Whereas the Lockup was just sheer intensity, just pummeling at a supersonic speed, and just that just maniacal and crazy. This has got the brutal, more slowed down kind of representation. It's mid paced. The first two songs are pretty fast, but it's definitely more about getting a more of a solid groove going with the rhythm section. It's the solos. Most of this, the solos on the album are good. They complement the songs. Some of them stand out a little bit more than others. But it's all about the riff, really, which is what metal is all about anyway. But it's got that more old school. So the tempo is slowed down a bit if you're listening to something like Lockup. Or something like Nile or something like that. But this is where where death metal was. It's a good representation of where it was at that point. So they definitely harken back to their roots. Like I said, lots of catchy. It's kind of funny to say toe tapping. When it comes to death metal. But it just has that groove and that vibe, and that that paying attention to just having some good solid riffing going on. John Tardy's vocals are solid throughout. Doesn't dip into the death growls too much, but when he does it, it's used for good effect. So yeah, it's definitely got it's a little more relaxed, but it's still heavy and brutal. And I've just, it's like I said, I can just sit there and just kind of be a, air drumming, or just kind of tapping my foot or whatever along with the riff, or, kind of air guitar in the riff, or, whatever, just kind of getting locked in with the groove of it, and enjoying it. So yeah, it's a solid album. If you're a fan of Obituary, you're not gonna need to be told every little minute detail, since you've got a feel for the band. And if this is the first Obituary album you are going to listen to, I say just dive right in. You'll like it. It'll give you a good idea of at least somewhat of their earlier days, though it's still got some of its own attitude and vibe that is unique. Because you've got a band that at 1989 or whatever was earlier days, and now that they've they're veterans and they've got everything polished up as far as their skill and and their songwriting and stuff, and then they kind of go back, and it's almost like they go back and take a slightly different interpretation of the past, in a way, I guess you could say, with some of their sensibilities of what they are more interested into now than they were back then. I think that would probably be the best way of putting it. And the mix is great. I had to turn up the volume on my speakers a little bit to get the bass drum thumping the way I wanted it to. It's I don't think they were using too many triggered sounds on it. Where certain other like with the Lockup album, the bass drum was very present. So I don't know, they probably triggered it to have a little more punch to it and a little more focus. But the mix and the way the production is great. It's got a very more, I guess, organic feel to it, more stripped down. It's not overly processed. It doesn't have it sometimes some of the newer bands, especially when they get involved in using some of the sim type programs, or like Guitar Rig or things like that, or Bias or whatever. Sometimes they can get a sound that sounds a little bit more artificial, but this sounds like something you probably more close to something you'd hear live, and then just polished enough so that it sounds good on the album. I really like how the bass is present. It's Terry Butler, who's been in, with Death, Massacre, 6 Feet Under. The guy's been around forever, so you definitely, if he's in the band, you might as well let him have his own spot in the mix where he's, ever present. And even with, a lot of times bands, like I've seen like a few now that will just go single guitar and bass. But a lot of the issue I have with a lot of the death metal, at least nowadays, is it's so down tuned, and and they're just trying to get that extra brutality in the tone, that the bass just kind of it just disappears. But it's definitely got an old school, feel for the production. Everything, like I said, everything feels a lot more organic, a lot more, raw. Like I said, the bass is ever present. You can, it's thumping. You can hear it within the mix, which I like, because I like being able to, know that the bass players in there are doing more than merely just fattening up the tone, by filling in those lower frequencies, along with the guitar, to make the guitar overall sound heavier, and just being there to keep cadence with the drummer. So I like that. It's like with Steve Harris with Iron Maiden. If you couldn't hear his galloping, bass riffs and his playing, it would take a lot away from the band. So I like it when bands don't drown out the bass player, with the guitars being too far down tuned, and you're really having to strain your ears to be able to pick up what they're playing. So yeah, it's got old school written all over it, and that's a good thing. Sometimes people revisit old stuff because they've ran out of ideas. It's not the case with these guys. Like I said, this has been a great year for death metal so far. You had the Immolation album, Lock Up. Now you got the Obituary album. It's out, and I'm not sure. I think there's probably going to be a few more gems coming down the pike, and I'll be looking out for them and giving them a fair review, and seeing if they're worth recommending to the rest of you metalheads out here. But yeah, don't hesitate, man. This is a great album. You just put it on, listen to it from beginning to end. And yeah, see if you pick up that Celtic Frost kind of vibe or feel after starting on track 6, going on more than the rest, and see if I'm right in my assumption that's kind of lingering around in there, or if it's just me. But yeah, pick it up, guys. Support Obituary. Guys have been around. God, this is what 30 some years. I think they started out as their initial band was Executioner, before they changed to Obituary. But yeah, they've been around a long time, man. Earned their stripes and done their tours of duty on the road. So always support the scene. Fuck the mainstream cookie cutter BS that insults us every time we hear it, and support the real music. These guys aren't making bazillions of dollars with those sweet contracts. So, and show your appreciation for all the work that they've done, and all that they've contributed to death metal. And I will talk to you guys next time when I have my next review up and ready. Take it easy.